Yo, what's up? Right when everyone thought Enlisted is dead and nothing can save it anymore, Gaijin finally activated its 2 brain cells and released a preview for the upcoming update. And this is one of the hardest hitting previews ever, because it's literally about jet planes. Yes, what a few people, I wouldn't say many, but what a few people were crying about, oh no, you can't add jet planes, it's Cold War stuff. Yeah, we're gonna have a little discussion in a few minutes about this, but first, let's look at what the spoilers say, because yes, now it's confirmed that we're getting jet planes. Very good, likely this month, I hope as fast as possible, because we've been waiting for a long ass time since December. It's already 4 months. So, what are we gonna get? First of all, well, we're gonna get a little bit of BR rebalancing, because finally BR 3 is gonna be separated from BR 4 and 5 matches. So BR 3 will only play with BR 2 and BR 4 and with itself, and BR 5 will not touch BR 3 anymore. Which makes sense, which also means we get basically pure +1 -1 matches. Which is good, which is how it should have been forever. And the only reason it wasn't implemented like that was that the player base was too small, and or Gaijin retardation, because that's always a factor regarding decisions. But you never underestimate this. This is not even a joke. They're just constant stupid decisions, as we saw over the last weeks with the April nonsense. But here we have finally some good decisions. Why? Even if you don't support the addition of jet planes, at least we get some hype and some new stuff. So this is better than what we have received for the last 4 months. So first, of course, the most famous of them all, the Messerschmitt 262, strong contender for sexiest looking plane ever, especially regarding the fact that this plane is already 80 years old, almost. No, it is already 80 years old, so it's, for such ancient technology, it's insanely good looking and modern, and the first official worldwide quite mass-produced and mass-used jet plane. Now, implemented 1944, it was already, the first developmental stages were in the late 30s, and there were already multiple prototypes flying around in 1943. So this is a straight World War II plane. It's not a fucking Cold War plane, it's a World War II plane. It's literally a mid to late World War II plane, not even a super late World War II plane. So yeah, like this, like no one can say this is not World War II. This belongs straight into World War II. So what is this? What are the features? Well, of course, Gaijin is dumb and doesn't post, well, technical data sheets, which is just stupid, which is annoying because people want to see the data and not wait. Also, Gaijin never releases the data a couple of days later as basically a hype crescendo. No, they literally just don't post it. So yeah, just if you don't use it for hype, just post it here. Yeah, like maybe one of the helpers is posting the stuff here in the meantime, but yep, I haven't seen anything yet, so I guess we'll have to wait. But don't worry, I made a video around 1.5 months ago where, when the leaks about these upcoming jet planes first came up as a topic, I showed you the War Thunder data sheets and stats for these planes. Now they are much more complicated because in War Thunder you can choose what weapons you put on them, but you also have something like a standard stuff. And in Enlisted we usually get the weaker and worse versions of what War Thunder can get, but some of this is also even described here. Now, the German standard jet will have 4 30mm cannons and a big booty 500 kilogram bomb. Yes, for Brit bonks, it's 1,000 pounds. So, and for Americans. Now, what does it mean? Well, it's actually a fun plane, because you have both. You have 4 30mm cannons. For those wondering how big is a 30mm round, it's around as big as a beer can or as a smoothie can or whatever. It's ridiculously big, not a tall one, but it's still quite, it's like very heavy, You just Google it up. They are insanely good. They're insanely strong. Dangerous shells, and shredding 4 of them at your targets will just annihilate every plane you see, and especially ground infantry, because you get nice high explosive effects when you just strafe over the ground. This is going to be ridiculously cool. And for additional historical immersion, you can just strafe at bomber rates, which is one of the reasons jet planes were equipped with 30mm, because anything smaller doesn't reliably kill heavy bombers in the sky. Then if the 500 kilogram bomb means you're not going to be useless most of the time. You can actually blow up tanks, and you can actually blow up even more infantry on the ground. Yeah, so yeah, I'm glad they used the 500 kilogram bomb and not the normal heavy bomb of 250, because it's literally just, the bombs are nerfed anyway. The 500 doesn't really perform like a 500. It performs more like a 350, I would say. So even more reasons to have more heavy bombs, because like it gets annoying if you always have those 250s who are themselves nerfed. And you can easily survive them with tanks. So yeah, just dropping big heavy bombs on the ground will be fun. Especially if it takes quite a lot of skill, as these planes will be very hard to aim with. Yep, so this is great, very great. Last question is, how fast do they shoot? Now, in real life, they were, depending on the model, implemented in a way that they shoot anti-cyclically, meaning if 2 shoot, the other one doesn't shoot. Or depending on the cadence, they all shoot at a different, like half of a second separation. This virtually increases the fire rate. Because if all shoot at once and then have to reload for like 1 second or so, you obviously have a fire rate of only 1 per second, which is 60 per minute. But if you separate them, you can get fire rates of 4 times as much if it's 1 second separation. And then you can get all of a sudden 240 rounds per second, which is much better, and increase the chance to actually hit targets, especially in the sky. So I hope this is also implemented in Enlisted, because if it's just all 4 shots at once, it's not that good depending on the situation. Though, yeah, this is a detail that we will have to figure out once the update drops. Then, something highly unexpected, Germany gets another machine gun in BF5. Germany already has 2 BF5 machine guns. The completely useless MG15, which, well, is just fast, but that's it. Horrible stats and significant, completely useless and unplayable after the great MG42-100 dropped. But now we're gonna get basically anti-air replacement. We're gonna get the MG81, which, well, offers 1,760 rounds per minute, which is insane, absolutely insane. And the MG15, I think, had something like 1,400, meaning you could, if you burst fire it, and burst fire means automatically 15 bullets or so, you could control it on short range, and you even could spray it on short range with high perking and very good mouse control. But obviously it's not something that you would spray in the far distance. Now this weapon with this fire rate will be basically uncontrollable, meaning you really have to mount it on something. Now question is, how many bullets does it have? It isn't depicted here, but since it has basically the same animation with the belt as the MG42-100, I'm basically 100% sure it's 100 bullets. I don't think it's 150. It would be very cool if it had 150. But I'm afraid it's only 100. Now, is there a reason to use this machine gun? I would say only as a secondary if you're running around with an MG42-100 primary, because this thing literally on long distances you can't easily spray away groups of enemies. You can hip fire it, yeah, on short range, it defeats everything, but it's not mobile, and it might come with quite a heavy speed penalty. So yeah, it's not that useful on its own, only as a secondary in combination with an MG42-100, but it can be fun. Now, the actual question is, why was it added to the game? Because there's literally no need for another machine gun. We already have the MG42-100. And the only thing people actually want is MG42s with more bullets. Maybe 150 or 200 bullets. Literally no one asked for this. And as we're gonna find out in a few seconds, a big theme of Enlisted updates has become recently that they've been very lazy regarding adding new animations and models to the game. That's why, for example, the Americans received an Ofenrohr last update instead of receiving a completely new model. Now, in this context, why the fuck is work time wasted on this weapon? Because it actually requires new models. And it doesn't make any sense to add something like this on the game, especially under hard time constraints for the lazy bumps and dark flow. So overall, I would say whoever made a decision to add this, as usual, very stupid. They could have added something useful, something interesting, but literally not something not something no one asked for. Yeah, I mean, literally just could have added an MG42-100 with MG42 with more bullets, and as a downside, maybe harder to control or higher fire rate. And yeah, everyone would have been happy, but this is, yeah, a very highly mixed bag. Then, Americans get the Meteor, which is their jet plane. And this will come with, American faction, Brit Bonks in real life. And this comes with 420mm. And, careful, Brit Bonk buys 2 heavy 500 kilogram bombs or 1,000 pound bombs. Now, why do they get the 2 heavy bombs and Germany gets only 1? Now you could say, yeah, because they have smaller cannons. Yeah, okay. Yeah, though 2 heavy bombs is just actually better. The thing is, though, the German one has its bomb right in the center, so it's actually much more precise. So I would say overall the German Messerschmitt is still better. But still, yeah, Meteor, always nice and welcome. This plane actually came very late, and well, it barely arrived in time to participate at World War II. So yeah, it's definitely historically accurate, because things like the Luftfaust also only arrived very late, either very late 44 or early 45. So yeah, it makes sense. Then something interesting actually, the Northover Projector, which is basically a British Ampulimut. Interesting. Now every faction besides the Japanese has a Ampulimut version. And this one could be a better Ampulimut. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, the way it's designed and built, it definitely should be a higher quality, higher performing one. We're gonna see, we're gonna find out. I'm interested. Yeah, can't wait to see, because Ampulimut's are actually very fun to use, but they're very weak, especially after 1,000 flame nerfs. So this is going to be interesting to witness. Then Japan gets, of course, a jet plane 2, which looks almost identical to the Messerschmitt, which makes sense because it's, well, almost a copy of it. It comes with the weakest weapon equipment out of them all. Only 2 30mm and 1 500 kilogram bomb. Okay. But it also comes with the best flying characteristics. So this could be quite a good trade-off. I hope so, definitely. And one thing I absolutely hope that Gaijin doesn't fuck up is that this plane is going to be an attacker plane, because not for a single plane is it written whether it comes as an attacker or fighter. And the problem with Japan BF5 is, since around 1 year, it only has fighter planes taking off without carriers, starting in the sky without carrier takeoff. And you're literally just have 3 fighter planes for BF4 or 5, and not a single attacker plane. The only attacker, the highest attacker plane you get is a BR3 plane that literally sucks and is barely playable at BR3. So and Gaijin was so dumb to not even change the classification of one of those 3 planes to an attacker plane. So this better going to be an attacker plane, because otherwise it just will be way too retarded for anything. But don't worry, the retardation comes, because here is exactly what we talked about just now regarding wasted work hours on the machine gun model. The Japanese get finally a higher BR anti-tank weapon, because I think their highest BR anti-tank weapon is literally BR2. Like, what the fuck? And they get a BR4 version now, which is of course the Ofenrohr. Now every nation has an Ofenrohr except for the Soviets, but the Soviets have 2 Panzerfaust, so yep, every nation is literally stealing Germany's anti-tank weapons. And apparently Germany sent a few of those to Japan. Though, yeah, let's put it this way. I personally don't care, but I already explained that it's just highly illogical to not spend time on modeling one of the many Japanese high-quality anti-tank guns and instead modeling this stuff that no one asked for. And this is a retarded retarded HQ decision, retarded company leadership decision to waste time and to allocate resources in such a stupid way. Yeah, this is just, come on, this needs to stop. No one's gonna take something like that serious. Not even the people who even don't care about slight historical inaccuracy, because the company loses respect if they make blatantly illogical decisions like these. Alright, then the Soviets get their well, monthly dose of Soviet buys, or quarterly dose of Soviet buys, because they're gonna get a BR2 semi-auto rifle, which is going to be the by far best one in the game for BR2, because it's a 5-round, very high damage, very high fire rate rifle with a bayonet. Now these are stats that any other semi-auto rifle in BR2 can only dream of. I tried them all out recently, and I can tell you they basically all suck. The Amagvera sucks extremely. The Japanese one is, if you really go deep into teching, soldier setups and so on, it becomes playable, but it means by itself it also sucks. And the M1 carbine is the only one barely playable, but only against mediocre players or bots. Against good players, you're gonna get instantly shredded by it. So yeah, but this is going to be an actually good one. This one reliably one-shots every enemy you see on short range. And I think even on mid-range it will reliably one-shot. And yeah, the Soviets now have officially likely the best rifle too in low BR, because you can't really nerf it that much. The only way to nerf it effectively is to give it very high dispersion, making it very imprecise. But the problem is, then the weapon becomes just retarded, which would be very bad game design. And since we know Gaijin's affinity for Soviet buys, we can expect this to be not really nerfed. This is going to be very, very strong. But okay, going to make Soviet BR2 more fun to play. And then they also get the Uragan, meaning Hurricane in Russian, SMG, which, if you take a close look, looks like a chimera of a MP40. Like the right half looks like an MP40, and the left half looks like a PPS 42. And I guess someone literally, okay, it's described here. It was literally put together from random parts. And, well, interesting. It's going to have an insane fire rate of 750 using a standard 32 round magazine. Now, how good is this going to be? It's going to be ridiculously good, likely. Now, here's the thing with the Soviets in BR2 regarding SMGs. They have the 2 best ones in the game. That's the problem. They literally don't need another one. The only logic I can see in adding this to the game is if the PPS 43 gets up-tiered to BR3, which is what every smart player was saying since forever, and this thing replaces it. yeah, this would be a good decision. And I hope Gaijin also has the understanding to do this, because otherwise it would be just a completely useless addition to the game. So yeah, and then of course the Soviets get their jet plane, and this one is actually not really World War II, because it was based on captured German blueprints for the Messerschmitt, and it was only finished after World War II. So this the only, out of all of the stuff, only clear not World War II plane, though it isn't as bad as it sounds. Now first, what about the weapons? It comes with the typical Soviet 37mm and 23mm cannons. Good. Very good. And one heavy 500 kilogram bomb. Now, how does it compare to the others? Well, a 37mm is significantly stronger than a 30mm. Because this one is actually the one that the 37mm shells actually look like bottles. They're extremely big, extremely heavy, and they look basically like the forearm of a man, or like two soy boy forearms combined, because these shells are literally tank shells from early war and the interwar period. So they contain so much HE that if you strafe on the ground, you literally, they're like mini bombs. That's the best explanation. They work exactly like little bombs that you spray on the ground on full auto, making them not only very fun to use but also actually strong. And I'd rather have one of those than 2 or even 3 30mm for ground strafing. And the 23mm shells that only the Soviets have enlisted are much better at hitting planes in the sky, since they are flying much faster than any other of those shells. So this configuration might be the overall strongest. Only question is, how is the lead indicator going to help you? Because if you have two completely differently fast flying shells, the lead indicator usually is almost useless. So yeah, because you likely get the average out of both, and meaning you miss with both unless you adjust properly. But since the 37mm is shooting quite slowly, it's very unlikely you're going to hit with him and then you're just going to miss your shots. Of course, you can bind your heavy cannon and your little cannons on different keys. Yes, I personally don't do it because it's highly confusing to operate too many keys at once and also fly the plane precisely and also drop your bomb precisely. So I try to just spray everything, which is also better if you just strafe the ground to get maximum damage. Alright, so yeah, that's it. Finally a proper update and not the retarded slop that we got all the last weeks. Now, why is this for the end? Why is this not the end of the world? The jet planes added. I already explained it in detail, going deeply into the stats of all of those planes. Also with the premium planes that are going to be added and likely spoiled next week. Because Germany is going to get the 50mm Naval, basically Messerschmitt 262 with a 50mm cannon in the nose. And there's going to be another one too, also a Tiger for the Japanese. Just watch the video, I'm linked below. It explains everything. Now, those planes aren't as fast as people think. Problem is, most people don't actually think, they just look at superficial labels. And this is how they view the world. Which is a problem, highly known psychological problem, because this is why most people are retards. They actually are too lazy to think. Now, most people, if they see stuff like that, will say, oh, this is a jet plane, it means it's too fast and overpowered. No, motherfucker, it ain't, because these are likely only 15 to 20% faster than the fastest normal planes, piston planes we have in the game. But only once they completely accelerated. Once, if you even try to do a little bit of a turn, you lose a lot or almost all of your speed. And you also become very well destabilized, making you very vulnerable to shoot at. And then it takes a while until you can properly accelerate again. Also, you need to finish your turn first, which will also be very hard, because these will come with ridiculous turn rates of, I guess, like 20 seconds or so. It's going to be insane. It's going to be... They're not by far not as good as people think. So they will be balanced. They will be only effective if people actually fly them optimally, which means you fly in as straight line as possible, meaning you have to constantly think ahead what's on the ground, so you don't have to change your direction suddenly. You have to constantly think about where enemy planes might be, and you want to just fly to the point, quickly unload all of your damage potential, and then turn around as efficiently as possible, and then resupply, and then repeat. So this flying these planes is going to be about efficiency, and not about like flying normal planes. So this is already very good because it adds a completely different layer of plane combat in Enlisted. And every high quality P-51 pilot, which is a BR-3 plane, can easily, as happened in real life too by the way, shoot down one of these jet planes. If you just fly intelligently, if you know, alright, I don't try to fly away, I'm just gonna do maneuvers, and I know that if you start turning, these jet planes won't be able to turn with you, and you easily outturn the jet plane and shoot it down. So yeah, like this isn't the end of the world, it's ridiculous. And the last point people complain about is, oh, this means that we're gonna have Cold War stuff. No, for two reasons. First of all, the helpers was whining and crying a little bit about, people, please don't think this is going to be the end of Enlisted, because all of this is World War II stuff, as I already said too, except for this plane, but it needed to be added due to balance reasons, because this is the only plane the Soviets can get as a jet plane. So yeah, this is a proper argument, because what is the alternative? Not giving the Soviets any jet plane. Now the smart alternative would be to give the Soviets some very fast or maybe very unique, cool BR-5 plane. Maybe something interesting experimental that isn't a jet plane but still comes with some cool BR-5 arguments. Problem is then, all of the 12-year-old Fortnite players would whine and bitch and rage about, oh no, why don't the Soviets have a jet plane? Yeah, because once again, superficial retarded thinking, they only see, oh, if 3 nations have jet planes, everyone needs to have a jet plane, otherwise it's unfair. Which, once again, people don't understand asymmetrical balance, but okay. I guess Gaijin didn't want to bother with such complaints and just added this thing. Yeah. Also, I guess this was the easiest way to edit, so yeah, whatever. And the other thing is, I'm very sure Enlisted won't add any Cold War stuff. Definitely not this year. Likely also not next year. And maybe also not in the coming years, because now, short and mid-range, there are absolutely no resources, even if Darkflow wanted to add Korea stuff, because this would be the first theater you could add Cold War stuff. Obviously the Korea War. Problem is, in order to add the Korea War, you would need to add a little bit of American stuff and a ton of, well, Korean stuff. But Darkflow doesn't even have enough employees now, or capacities, or intelligence, or whatever, to release an update on time. They absolutely don't have any resources to release a completely new campaign and a completely new theater and a completely new, well, timeline of humanity. So, nope, there won't be any Korean War. It's completely logical to assume that under the current circumstances, Darkflow can come up with something like that. Like, if Darkflow releases something like this, you can be sure it won't release any Korean stuff. Yeah. Also, I'm gonna make a video in the next days. There were rumors about Darkflow being basically dissolved, and only like a skeleton crew left, and all of the remainers are now at the Gaijin, working for Gaijin and doing infantry stuff there. And these rumors were basically verified now, so I can make a video about it. Because this also explains why there's no updates for Enlisted, because there's almost no one working anymore on Enlisted. Yeah, so we're gonna have to look into that to not be surprised suddenly by some random Gaijin nonsense in the future, okay? Until then, write what you think. about this situation and these new additions in the comments, and of course like and subscribe if you're new to not miss out on anything good coming soon. And my soon is actually soon, not like the Darkflow soon. And of course share this with every other nerd you know, so the nerd rage can spread like wildfire. Alright, until soon, goodbye.